Welcome back, design students. In this video, we're going to set up constraints and set up the hierarchy for our foot controls. But before we get too far into this, I discovered a mistake that I made. I want to show you. Don't follow along here, just watch. We need to constrain this IK control, if you remember this thing right here, right? We need to constrain this IK control to this helper that we installed right here. So watch what happens when I do that. Did you see how the foot shifted? We absolutely don't want that. The reason that happened is because there's a slight difference between the orientation of the helper and the orientation of the IK solver. So what I should have done in the last video is aligned the point helpers with the IK solver and not the foot. So I want you to select your point helpers, pull them out, and then hit Alt-A to bring up the align tool and make sure that you align this time to the IK solver. Do the same with both. And that should take care of that shifting. We're going to apply two different kinds of constraints to our control system here. We're going to use orientation constraints, which constrain the rotation of an object, and position constraints, which constrain the movement or the position of an object. When you apply an orientation constraint to something, you can rotate it, but you can't move it. And the opposite is true with a position constraint. So let's start by selecting one of our IK solvers, and then going to Animation, Constraints, and we're going to select Position Constraint. And then I want you to constrain that to the helper that's aligned with it. So that now, when we select the helper and move it, it moves the foot. And let's do the same thing with the other side. No shifting, that's good. And then we're going to orientation constrain the foot to this toe helper. So select the foot, go to Animation, Constraints, Orientation Constraint, and select the toe helper. And then do the same thing for the other foot. Now, before we go any further, we need to do something to these controllers that is something we need to do when we're rigging quite often. If I select one of these controllers, or one of these helpers, with my Move tool selected, you can see down here that there is data in here. It has a position. And you can also see, if you go to the Motion tab, you can see that there's data in here as well. So we need to zero that data out. Now, to do that, you need to hold down Alt and right-click, and that brings up the rigging quad menu, and we need to select Freeze Transform. And when we do, we get a little warning, but when we do, you can see that it added a 0 position here, and it also zeroed out that value that was here. And it didn't do anything with this, although I thought it would. So we need to do that to all of our objects, all of our point helpers, and now we need to link them. So let's start by selecting the ankle controller and turning on the Select and Link tool, and click and drag from here to the toe, and then from the toe back to the heel. Do the same thing for the other side. And then let's check this in the schematic view. And you can see that we have this set up properly. To test this out, select the heel control, and you should be able to move the foot up and down. Hit Control-Z to put it back where it was, and then select Rotate, and you should be able to rotate the foot like so. Selecting the toe control will allow you to rotate the foot this way. We can also test this out by selecting the robot body, getting the Move tool, and moving it up and down, and the feet should stay firmly planted on the ground. Always hit Control-Z to put it back where it was. In the next video, we're going to create some control objects for the feet, and we're going to begin to create other control objects for other parts of our robot character. And I'll see you then.